On the last episode of Unsolved True Crime, witnesses shined a light on Lori Sue Nelson, Kit's mother.
She was abusive back then, but, like I said again, Lori was also, as she was growing up, before she had kids, was abused by her mother.
Everybody can choose a different path and want to break a cycle, and that's not what Lori wanted to do.
Eventually, the family learned Kit was non-binary.
They identified more with kind of being in the middle of the spectrum versus, picking masculine or feminine, and it made them comfortable, it made them happy.
In 2021, Kit moved away from their adopted family to reconnect with their birth mother in Omak, several hours away. A few months later, Kit disappeared.
We say it was November of 2021 because that's last social media presence, last time any of our family spoke to Kit. Kit, isn't the most social person as a whole. Like, they're very anxiety-ridden, but at the same time, they always craved being around certain people like Amethyst.
Probably my best friend. I knew them from kindergarten to up until they disappeared.
When best friend Amethyst McCart learned none of their friends had heard from Kit in several months, she started to investigate.
Me and my grandma Julie drove up to Omak, and when we got there, the police told us that Lori said they had ran away.
Lori Sue Nelson is Kit's biological mother. According to police, Lori reported Kit as a runaway in September 2022.
Somebody always knew where Kit was, so it's really out of character.
Kit's family knows as a non-binary Native teen, Kit faces some terrible risks. According to the FBI, hate crimes against transgender and gender non-conforming individuals have increased 587% between 2013 and 2019. A 2022 study by the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans, and Intersex Association found that most non-binary or trans murder victims in 2020 were Indigenous women and trans women of color.
Deuce Nelson is Kit Mora's uncle.
Francisco and her finally split up. Francisco's parents, I think, are the ones that CPS when they got involved, and she was so mad at Francisco, and she was going to kill Francisco, wanted him killed, and blah blah blah. And then when Esmeralda got taken away, straight up that she was going to get even with him one way or another.
Bonnie grew as Kit's grandmother on her father's side. Bonnie would tell us more of Lori Sue's abusive side.
When she was with my grandson, Francisco, Kit's dad, she would stab him, bite him. He wouldn't tell the cops that it was her.
Bonnie and Charles would gain custody of Kit. Bonnie would tell us more about Kit's stay in their home.
She lived with Charlie and I until we got a divorce in 2012. And then she just lived with Charlotte and I.
Kit would be devastated by the death of their brother.
They were very upset. They had just spoken to the person that had done that, actually. And then it was, I think, a couple days later, they heard that had happened, and it was really just devastating for them. And I think that's part of what pushed them to go stay with their mother.
Giovanni Nelson would tragically take his own life on April 29, 2021.
Javante, pet him.
He was only 20 years old.
Yeah, they were, I can't even imagine. And then on top of, the love bombing and getting all these brand new gifts from, the mother that you just so desperately wanted.
Lori eventually convinced Kit to move into her home. Here, Kit would see another side of Lori Sue Nelson. At the time that Kit was staying with Lori, Lori carried on a relationship with a man named Kenneth. Lori became convinced that Kit was secretly seeking a relationship with Kenneth. Text messages from Kenneth would reveal that he wasn't living with Lori at the time of Kit's disappearance. In one text, Kenneth even claims Kit ran away with someone they loved. Jessica Freely was Lori Sue Nelson's neighbor during the time Kit was living with Lori Sue.
But she just kind of, once Kenneth got that brain injury or whatever that was.
Lori Sue Nelson assaulted Kenneth Diaz prior to Kit going missing. Kit's sister Charlotte would go into further detail.
At some point while they were together, she beat him over the head with a hammer after he just had some kind of surgery on his head and almost killed him.
She got really bad into the drugs again, and she didn't really let me come around and stuff. And she happened to see my daughter outside one day and was like, "Hey, can you come sit on the staircase with the kids, sit in my house with the kids, they're upstairs, I'll be right back." And she had told my daughter, "Do not touch them, do not talk to them, do not even look at them, because I don't want them to get used to having attention that they're not going to get." And my daughter is 14 years old at this time, and she comes home and she was like, "Mom," she's like, "she told me not to touch them." She's like, "But they're babies. I couldn't." She's like, "I had to go in there." And she was like, "They were barricaded in there, Mom, barricaded with a microwave by themselves, dirty diapers." And she came home crying. And I lost my oldest son from my drug abuse. And so calling CPS is not something that I like to do. But she came home and she was like, "Mom, you have to do something." She was bawling. And I was like, I contemplated a lot about it, and I did. I called, and I gave him my name. I wasn't anonymous. I was like, I have to do it for those babies, because that's crazy. That baby's a newborn baby, and the twins are taking care of them by themselves, and they're 5. And I didn't know the excess amount of it until the news report came out about them being removed. And I am so glad that I did call, because it was way worse than my daughter could have even imagined to tell me. And yeah, and it's crazy because when she got sober and she had Rihanna, and she was, her kids were her world, everything involved her kids. She was so protective of them. And then just one day, we never seen the kids. They never came outside. And I work graveyard at the casino, and she and Kenneth are there every single night, all night long. I mean, I work from 11 to 8 in the morning, and they're there the whole time. And then it comes to find out that they were giving the kids the Benadryl to pass them out and stuff.
An old landlord of Lori's had said that when Lori had moved out of her place that she was renting to Lori, there was bottles of Benadryl everywhere, and that before that, the kids supposedly slept a lot, that were in her custody at that time. I'm not sure what children it was. I want to say it was the twins and the older girl.
I seen her going downhill. I seen her go from a normal mom to super, super skinny and violent, and that evil come back out in her.
Lori had said this about her children. She was asked, "Where are the kids? You've been high for days." And she said that she didn't care, and she wished that, they would die, essentially.
I remember the conversation, one of the last conversations I had with Kit before this happened was how they were so tired of being there. They were exhausted. They were doing school, work, and watching kids all the time. And there was no downtime. There was no quiet. And when they weren't working the store, they were watching the kids. And when they weren't doing those two things, they were at school. So it was just nonstop. And they just kept saying that they wanted to come home. And we offered so many times to go get them. But they were like, "Well, who will watch my mom's kids then if I'm gone?"
Sometime after Kit vanished, Lori Sue Nelson fled her apartment.
Did Lori have anything to do with Kit going missing? Could she have killed Kit?
If you have any information on Kit Mora, you're asked to call Omak County Police Department or reach out to the Finding Kit Facebook page. Please help us find Kit Mora.
This story is far from over, and we will be continuing the series until Kit Mora is found and has justice.
We want to thank Kermita Thompson for her work on Kit Mora's case. If you want to support Peace Productions, please subscribe to our Patreon. The link is on the screen.